Hey, how you doing? It's your boy Brogi Naric, back again with another installment of the Ponder Playhouse. This is a series on my YouTube channel where I do fan castings for various movies and TV shows. And this is a doozy. This is going to be a fun one. I'm going to be doing a fan casting for a live action My Hero Academia movie, which is currently in production. It was announced back in I think 2018. It's going to be through Legendary Pictures and Warner Brothers. And they've been very hush-hush about it. And I just thought this would be a fun video to do. Most of these fan casting videos tend to do pretty well on my channel, so that's what we're going to be talking about in this one. Before I get into it, don't forget to give this video a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Now, My Hero Academia is currently my favorite anime right now. Definitely my favorite current anime, I should say. Not my favorite anime, it's definitely up there, but it's like currently airing, current generation, that's my favorite anime. It's awesome, very popular. It's an anime, it's a manga. Don't read the manga, but it's popular, it's still going. It focuses on something that I'm very dear to me, superheroes. And it's basically, it's in this world where 80% of the world has quirks, which is basically they're born with these superpowers. And in this world, being a superhero is like a corporate job. There's also different rules and regulations for being a hero, but there's also people who are born with these powers choose to be a hero, some choose to be a villain, and some of them just live normal lives, not necessarily, fighting crime, or they're just living their lives with their powers. And these powers can be your traditional powers, or they can be your weird mutations. People look different. But the one thing about this world that I do like with the powers is the powers have a certain set of rules, and they also have a certain set of weaknesses that are established. And I do like that because they keep it, a little contained. But the series focuses on this kid who has no powers. He looks up to this hero named All Might, and he eventually is granted powers because all he wants to do is be a hero, even though he has no powers. He's granted this hero's powers. He becomes a student, and they go to this school where he trains with other heroes. And the story is about this kid becoming his early days of him on his journey to become the world's greatest hero. And awesome series. The teachers at the school are pro heroes. They help train. There's a lot of training montages, a lot of tournaments, a lot of practice drills. It's going to be interesting to see how they would handle that in this film. Also knowing that it's anime adaptation, they're most likely it takes place in Japan. They're most likely going to switch it up and make it like America, which that's kind of the thought process I'm going with. It's either going to be America or they're going to do like Pokemon Detective Pikachu, where it was like a made-up city that was in America, but it had like a Japanese look to it. They might do something like that. So that's kind of the mindset I'm kind of basing this in. Now, one of my things about when I cast different animes, I try my best to go with a majority Asian cast, but it is going to be a more American product, so I at least try to have the main protagonist, the main antagonist, and sometimes even the main love interest to at least be Asian, if that is what pertains to their characters. I'm going to try to do that with this fan casting. But one of my things I would suggest when it comes to picking a director for this film, at least for the first movie, I think they should get someone who has horror experience, because if they're going to adapt the first story, the climax is a group of kids on a field trip and then they just end up in the middle of a terrorist attack. So I think you could add some horror elements to that, with these kids, using their abilities to fight these random group of villains that come out to attack them. And I think kind of like with Shazam, they had a horror director do that, and James Wan did Aquaman. That's kind of been Warner Brothers' kind of way they've been handling things recently, so I think they should continue with that. And hopefully this franchise will be equivalent to the Harry Potter franchise if they don't fuck it up. Because I'm thinking like young kids and actually watching them kind of grow into adults. It's gonna be a little tough, but that's the mindset I have for this. So with all of that established, so now I'm gonna get into my fan casting picks. I'm gonna start with the heroes. I'm gonna start with the main character of the series, Izuku Midoriya, aka Deku. And my pick to play Deku is Ian Chin. Ian Chin's a young actor. He's 14 years old. You may recognize him from Fresh Off the Boat. And the recent Shazam movie, he was the Asian kid in Shazam, and he's fun. I liked him, especially in the Shazam movie. He has a certain energy, but also because he's younger, he's Asian. He's from a Chinese background, even though Midoriya's Japanese. But he's also has a certain. He's small enough to play that wimpy role because that's exactly what Midoriya is, especially early on in the series. He's this superhero fanboy. He was born with no quirk, and he's a huge fan of the number one hero, All Might. And he wants to be. He has a heroic and fighting spirit, and he's motivated. He's calculating. He's kind of like Batman, where he's taking notes and coming up with strategies, taking a little bit of different people's things. He's eventually granted the power of his hero once he helps save his life, and he struggles to fight against the odds to save his friends. Now his power is that of All for One, which is basically he has this energy in him that gives him super strength and durability, but it's like he can also like move air, like not just punching, but like the force of the punch is enough to cause damage. But the problem is he's like a young kid and his body can't handle the strength, so he has to only uses like 10% of that power, and when he does, he ends up breaking his body, so he has to train to get better. He has to actually, he's not a Mary Sue, is all I'm saying. Although he does have plot armor, he does get his ass kicked a lot, even though he's very powerful. And he's kind of annoying, especially in the beginning. He struggles, but he also cries a lot. But he's also very inspirational, and he uses other strategies. He gets gadgets. He's a really good character, and I think Ian Chin could bring that sincerity of Midoriya, but he can also, in his own way, bring a certain fun quirkiness to the character that the character has. So Ian Chin is my pick for Deku. Next up is that of the fan favorite character All Might, and my pick to play All Might is, and his name is John Cena. That's right, John Cena. I know a lot of people have been saying The Rock, which makes sense, but The Rock is busy. Also, I don't really need to see The Rock in this role. I think John Cena would kill it though. I think this would be, he would be the star power for this film. Because if you're going to focus on a lot of kids, you got to have the older actors to bring some star power. And his star has been rising, especially at Warner Brothers, with him being in the Suicide Squad movie. They're doing the Peacemaker movie. John Cena, former WWE wrestler. And he's built like a fucking superhero. Have you seen the man? He's built like a superhero. He has the body for the symbol of peace, the number one hero, All Might. All Might has, once again, the All for One power, gives him super strength. But it's passed down from generations and he gets stronger, but there's a catch, because at this point in the story he is suffering from an injury, so he can't contain his powers, so he transforms to his regular self, which is this weak, sickly version of him, and he always coughs up blood. They'll have to change that. It works in animation. Don't know how they're going to make that funny in live action, to him always coughing up blood, but he's this weaker, thinner version of himself. And there's different ways you can handle that, because he can be effects heavy, because he is really big. So in my mind, I would think they would keep Cena as big as he is and then use CGI to make him small, kind of like a reverse version of what they did with Chris Evans as Captain America in the first movie. Do a reverse version of that, or you can use some sort of makeup as well. And but he's basically he's dying of this injury. He's looking for a successor. He gives his powers to Midoriya because he sees he has a fighting spirit to potentially be the next great hero. And he also mentors him and other students at the school, because he's like working at school. They keep their relationship a secret. And he's a beloved superhero. People love him. He's, like I said, number one hero. And a common trait between All Might and John Cena is they both love loud ass suits. And there's a he's not perfect, because even though All Might is a great hero, he's not the greatest teacher. He kind of teaches Midoriya, but he's not the best at it. That's kind of like some of his flaws. It's like he's very inspirational, but he's not that great of a teacher, and that's a good dynamic. But and I think John Cena can definitely do the tough, inspiring hero that's kind of goofy and very boisterous. I think he would have fun with that. Because there's a certain comedy to the character, but there's also some seriousness and drama to it. And I think Cena would be able to pull that off. So my pick for All Might, John Cena. Next on my list is the resident bad boy of My Hero Academia, Katsuki Bakugo, aka Kakshan, aka Great Explosion Murder God Dynamite. Yes, this was a tough one, but it took me a while. This is actually one of the toughest things to cast. It's going to be a little rough, but my pick to play Bakugo is Nathan Blair. Now, Nathan Blair is a young actor. He's 13. I first saw him in the Netflix movie We Can Be Heroes, which is like the spinoff sequel to Shockborn Lava Girl. He was my favorite character and kind of like favorite child actor in that movie. There was a certain charisma he had. And I think, you may also know him from The Best Worst Weekend Ever and some other short films. But there was a certain charisma that he had. And I think he can pull off the annoying asshole character. But that's exactly what Kakshan is. He's a fan favorite. He's not my favorite because he's very one-dimensional. At least in the beginning, he's very one-dimensional where he's Deku considers him a friend, and he's more of a bully towards Deku. He's very he's a cocky asshole, and he's a rival friend of Deku, but he's to a degree he's not jealous. He has like this not inferiority complex. He has this what's the inverse? Superiority complex, where he's the best. He's better than everybody. Even talks shit to his number one hero, All Might. But he has skills to back it up. That's the thing. Like, he talks shit, but he can back it up. He's very badass, but he's also very dangerous because he's not really focused on the positive aspects of being a hero. He's more in the I want to prove I'm a badass aspects of the hero. He goes through his emotional journeys, and now his quirk is Explosion, where he can secrete nitroglycerin sweat from his palms, and he can make explosions. Really affects every character. He allows him to fly and shit like that. But he's, like I said, very reckless. But I think this kid could pull it off. It was, like I said, it took a while, and I just went with a child actor that I thought was really good. He can also maybe bring a certain charm to the character as well early on, as opposed to waiting for later for it to kick in. But Nathan Blair is my pick for Bakugo. Next up is another fan favorite, that of Shoto Todoroki, another tough character to cast, mainly because I specifically wanted an Asian actor, specifically a Japanese actor, to play this, because if we're going to race bin, Shoto is definitely a character who should not be race bin, because other times when you race bin, it's like, well, their race doesn't technically tie into the character, but Shoto being Japanese directly ties into his character. And my pick for Shoto is Dylan Kento Curtis. He's a young actor, hasn't been in much. He's been in some small TV roles. He was in the background of The Mandalorian. I'm grasping at straws here. This was tough. He's also been on Broadway, but he does look like Shoto. So, and I know he can do. He's Japanese, but he also knows. He's Japanese American. He can do the English, and he has a good look. He's a handsome kid, which is also what Shoto is. He's the strong, silent type character. His power is half cold, half hot, where one half he can make ice. He can manipulate ice, and the other half he can manipulate fire. He's not immune to either, so he has to balance it out. Although early on he only uses his ice powers because his fire power comes from his dad, and he hates his dad, and rightfully so, because his dad's a fucking asshole. He's very super powerful. He's like one of the more powerful members in the class, Class 1A, but he's also kind of lacks strategy early on. Like I said, he's the strong silent type, but he has a lot of pathos because he comes from abusive parents on both sides. He hates his dad, and he was driven to be the best by his dad because I'll get more into his dad later, but he was, forced by his dad, beaten by his dad to be good, and that kind of what drives him, that drives him to his motivation to be the top heroes because this has been ingrained in him, but he also wants to prove his dad wrong by doing it on his own, which is why he only uses his ice at the beginning, but that's more about the character. And like I said, the reason I wanted him to specifically be played by a Japanese actor is because it is firmly established that out of all the other characters who are mostly Japanese, Shoto definitely lives, he loves the traditional Japanese aesthetic. So it'd be kind of weird to take that away from the character and have him played by someone who's not Japanese, even though that's, like I said, firmly established in the character that he loves the Japanese aesthetic. So those are my reasonings for that. And like I said, not familiar with this actor, but there's gonna be a lot of that on this list with these kids. They were tough to cast, but Dylan Kento Curtis is my pick for Todoroki. Next up is Oshiko Uraraka, aka Uravity, and my pick to play her is Lulu Wilson. She's a young actress. She's 15. You may know her from The Haunting of Hill House. She was also in Annabelle Creation, another Warner Brothers production. So Oshiko's quirk is zero gravity, where she can make objects have zero gravity by touching them. But then when she touches her fingers, those objects regain their gravity. And she can also, she gets nauseous. She has trouble controlling her powers very early on. When she, floats around, she gets nauseous. Now her character is, she grew up poor, and she becomes a hero because she wants her family to have money. The reason I say poor in quotations is because her parents are architects. I don't know how you can be a poor architect in a world where superheroes and villains are constantly fighting and destroying property, but whatever. But she wants to use that money to make her family better. She's the bubbly, kind, but kind of bland girl next door. She does get better. She gets better. She learns how to fight. She learns martial arts. But she's also the romantic interest for Deku. Although that happens a little bit later on where they start to really get into that. But she's a friend of his. And she's also motivated by Deku because he's a very inspirational person. So I think I haven't seen her. But I think she would do good in the role. She kind of looks like Oshiko. And you might say, well, she's supposed to be Japanese. That design could be Japanese, couldn't be. I don't know, but I think she looks enough like the character, so that's why I picked her. So yeah, Lulu Wilson is my pick for Uravity. Next up is Tenya Ida, aka Ingenium, and my pick to play Ingenium is Jackson Geach. Now, he's a young actor. He's 18. He's from Chinese background. You may recognize him from the Netflix comedy Always Be My Maybe, and in the short series called NC-16. He's also a singer. Now he's a little bit older than the other actors I casted, which is fine. But also I wanted someone a little bit older, a little bit bigger, because Ida is a bigger kid compared to some of the other kids. And he can be nerdy and comical, which plays into Ida's character. And he looks like Ida, like he looks just like Tenya. And his quirk is engine, where he has like these car-like engines in his calves that gives him enhanced speed and like strong legs. And he has to maintain himself kind of like a car in a weird way. And he also wears a suit of armor. But Ida's character, he's very studious, he's very driven, and he's very loud. He has like a dry sense of humor. In a way, you can kind of imagine him as like what people think of when they think of Cyclops being the drab, boring guy. That's what Ida kind of is, even though that's not what Cyclops is. But anyway, but he's the class representative. He's very studious, and he's also Deku's best friend once they meet each other in school. And he once again admires Deku's skills and wants to be as good, if not better than Deku. But he comes from a rich family of heroes, and he wants to follow in his brother's footsteps, and that's like his motivation for trying to be the best. He's a fun character. He's a good side character, and I think this Jackson Geach kid would be perfect for Ingenium. Next up is that of Best Girl, Sue Asu, aka Froppy. Yes, Froppy is Best Girl. Sue is Best Girl. And my pick to play Sue is Aubrey Anderson Emmons. Young actress, she's 13. You would recognize her as Lily from Modern Family. She's also was a dancer. The main reason I picked her is because she looks like Sue. She really does. And I think she can pull that sort of... Sue's not necessarily... She's got a dry humor, but she's also just awesome. She's the most awesome chick out of the team, at the beginning at least. Her quirk is frog. She basically has frog powers. But she's very reliable. Her and Oshiko are very good friends, and they work together to make each other better. A minor role, but also a fan favorite, and she would have to be in the movie. Now, next up, the next young hero I'm going to cast, I'm not going to cast all of them, but the next young hero I'm going to cast is Miro Togata, aka Lemillion. And my pick to play Lemillion is Jacob Hopkins. Now, Jacob Hopkins is a 19-year-old. He's very tall. He's I think 6'2", but he's 19. He's young. You may know him as the voice of, I forget the character's name. He's from The Amazing World of Gumball, the blue cat kid from Amazing World of Gumball. He does his voice. He was also in The Goldbergs, and he was on True Blood. He's 6'1", my bad. He's 6'1", and Lemillion is a fan favorite character, total badass. He wants to save at least 1 million people, hence is his name. His quirk is permutation, which is basically he can phase through matter, but he has to kind of like Shadowcat from X-Men. He can phase through matter, but the thing is he doesn't float like her. So when he phases, he sinks, but when he resolids, it forces him. It kind of propels him. He's worked out a way to where he can phase and then ricochet himself all over the place. It's really awesome. It'd be really cool to see. But he's part of this group. He's a higher classman. He's if the main kids are freshmen, he's a junior, if not a senior. And he's part of this group known as the Big Three, which are the top students at the UA school that they go to. And he's a fun character. He's very lighthearted. He's very jovial, but he's also a badass and a hard worker. Super positive, very energetic, but he's also goofy as well. And he was, originally going to be the person who All Might was going to give his powers to, but then he, meets Midoriya. And of course, at a certain point, spoilers, he loses his powers, trying to save this little girl, but he later regains them. He's a badass character. He would have to be in the franchise at some point, and I think Jacob Hopkins has the look and is talented enough to pull that off. So Jacob Hopkins is my pick for Lemillion. Now I'm going to get into some other characters in the franchise, mainly some of the other heroes and teachers. Not a lot, but just a couple of them. I'm going to start off with Mr. Ozawa, aka Eraserhead, who is the head teacher of the main character's class and a former and an actual active hero. And my pick to play Eraserhead is Steven Yin. Everyone knows Steven Yin, comes, South Korean background. You know him as, I think, with Glenn in The Walking Dead. He was in that movie Minari. He's also a phenomenal voice actor. He recently did the voice of Invincible in the Invincible show. And Steven Yin is great. And I wanted an actor who has another name actor, but also someone who people like and could easily fit into this role of Eraserhead. He's the class 1A homeroom teacher. He's also an active superhero, and his quirk is Erasure, where he can nullify a person's powers just by looking at them, but that ability deactivates when he closes his eyes. So he has to always keep his eyes focused on them, and that causes him to have he's very tired and he has very red eyes. He's always very low energy, because it drains a lot of his energy. And he's kind of like a Batman. He relies on his gadgets and his goggles, so people can't see his eyes. But he's a really cool character. He's very blunt and he's very hard on the heroes. He's kind of, in a way, you could comparison to Harry Potter. He's kind of like a Professor Snape a little bit at the beginning, where he's very hard on Deku. He's like, I don't think you can cut it. He's like always on him, but he also realizes there's some relationship with him and All Might, and but he's a really solid character. He really goes hard on the kids, but he also sticks up for them, and he has some dope ass fighting sequences. And I think Steven Yeun is like a badass action character, but he can also get a little comedy in there. He would kill that. So Steven Yeun is my pick for Mr. Ozawa. Another important hero that would have to be in this movie, or in this franchise at least, would be that of Gran Torino. And my pick to play Gran Torino is Jackie Earle Haley. Now, you may know or may not remember him as Rorschach in Zack Snyder's Watchmen movie. He was also Freddy Krueger in that Nightmare on Elm Street reboots. But I love Jackie Earle Haley. This was another tough role to cast. I wanted to cast an older actor with a certain name, but would also fit the role. And he fits the role because he's older. He's also a smaller guy, which fits with the look of Gran Torino. And he's also kind of goofy and wacky, fun character actor, which fits Gran Torino's character. He is an old hero who is All Might's second mentor, and he actually helped train All Might. And his quirk is that of Jet, where he shoots air from his feet and allows him to ricochet all around, all over the place. It's like a terror, bouncing around and knocking the shit out of people, even though he's like a smaller guy. And he's the guy who really helps train Deku. If All Might is like, okay, so like Deku is Luke, All Might is Obi-Wan, and then like Gran Torino is Yoda. He like really gives him the secret to unlocking how he should use his powers. And he helps him develop his shoot style. And he's an old guy. Sometimes he acts senile, and he's like not witted, but he really is kind of witted. It's a quirky character, and Jackie Earle Haley can definitely bring a cool energy to that. So Jackie Earle Haley is my pick for Gran Torino. Now, this was a late addition. I wasn't going to do this character, but I had to do it because this character is starting to pop up more in the series, and also I wanted to piss some people off. So I'm going to cast Hawks, fan favorite. And my pick to play Hawks is Jharrel Jerome. Yes, Jharrel Jerome is a young actor. He's 23. You may know him from Moonlight. He was in Concrete Cowboy on Netflix. And he also won an Emmy for his role in When They See Us, which was also on Netflix. Really good actor and young up-and-coming actor. And the reason I went with Jharrel Jerome, you're like, oh, he looks nothing like him. Well, you see, it was brought to my attention that the English dub voice actor for Hawks is Zeno Robinson. And I was like, oh, that's dope. I'm going to use that. So that's the reason why I went with Jharrel Jerome. He's a young actor, very good. And you can't deny his skills. He's a very good actor. And Hawks is this young, popular hero. He becomes the new number 2 hero. His quirk is fierce wings. It's kind of crazy, but he has these big red wings where he can fly. But then he can also like telekinetically control his feathers. They can like move around and do other things, and he can also like make projectiles and weapons out of it. But he's like this young hip hero, but he acts nonchalant and he's like cocky, but he is very dedicated to his job, even though he's like cynical of the government group that they work for. And he's like a hero who's kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, because he does go undercover when it comes to this storyline with the villains. But he's also really cool. He's coming up more in the series. Really awesome character. So I just threw him in at last minute. Jharrel Jerome is my pick for Hawks. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Now, next up is another fan favorite character, um, that of Endeavor. And my pick to play Endeavor is Louis Ozawa. Now you may recognize him from the series Hunters, which is on Amazon Prime. He was also in the movie Predators, and he also, interesting enough, played the character of Scorch on like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. like season 1. That was like one of the first episodes, maybe the first episode. He played the character Scorch, who has firepower. That was like a happy coincidence. Reason I went with him because once again, he's a Japanese. He comes from like Japanese Taiwanese background. He's a martial artist. He's also tall. I wanted a Japanese actor for this role because Endeavor is very much ingrained in the Japanese culture, and his character is ingrained. It's part of his character, him specifically being Japanese. But also he's tall because Endeavor is a big man. I did my best to find a Japanese actor who's also had stature. He's a fairly tall guy. I think he's at least 6'1". So those were my reasons for picking him. His quirk is Hell Flame, which is basically he's a pyrokinetic. He makes some really hot ass fire, and he is Shoto Todoroki's father, and he's an asshole. Like personality wise, he's a hard ass. He's an asshole, but family and personal wise, he's an asshole. He strategically had his son Shoto in order for him to become the greatest hero. By that I mean his power is fire, but his weakness is he can overheat. He had a wife whose power was ice, so he had a bunch of kids and was waiting till he eventually had a kid that had both ice and fire, which is Shoto, and he abused the shit out of him to train him to be the great hero, and he also abused the shit out of his mother. Once again, Endeavor is an asshole. But even though he is an asshole, he's still the second greatest hero in this world. He is super jealous of All Might. And he does comment on the fact that like in the anime, even though he's the number 2 hero, it sucks that the number 1 hero. Well, they're in Japan. He's the number 2 hero, and it sucks that there's an American that's the number 1 hero. So that's the reason why I was like, yes, he has to be Japanese to keep that make that hatred a little more that aspect a little more real. But even though he is jealous of All Might, he does respect All Might. He is the one hero who was consistently training his ass off to surpass All Might. And when things go down, he has to step up to that plate. And he, like I said, he's an abusive asshole, but he is a badass. And he does eventually change. He does get better, but there's a certain pathos to this character. And Luis Ozawa, I've seen him in other things. He's a solid actor. He's a good enough actor because, he's not that important early on in this series, but he would definitely be another solid actor for later on in the franchise. So he's my pick for Endeavor. So now I'm going to get into the villains, and I'm only going to be mainly casting the main story arc villains. And so that's my goal here. I'm not going to cast all the villains. There are some other side villains that are very popular. Not going to be casting them. Just going to be mainly casting the main arc villains who could potentially lead this franchise. So I want to start with my least favorite to the ultimate bad guy. So I'm going to start this off with Danjiro Tabata, aka the Gentile Criminal. And my pick to play the Gentle Criminal is Dev Patel. This was an odd one. I don't know why, but this one just kind of came to me. Dev Patel, you may remember from Slumdog Millionaire. He was in Chappie, and he was also in The Last Airbender. He played Zuko. But he's a very talented actor, and he can be kind of quirky in his own way. I feel like he would have fun with this Gentile Criminal character. His quirk is elasticity, where basically he can make anything he touches rubbery. It doesn't matter, anything, solid, liquid, or gas. Whatever he touches, he can make it rubber. It's kind of a cool power. And he's this weird, he's a former student of the UA. He was trained to be a hero, but he's also a fucker. And eventually he decides that I'm not good at this hero shit, and he becomes a gentleman criminal, which is basically he does like these very low level crimes, and he's also like a YouTube star, and he's like obsessed with fame, but he also is like very hoity-toity. He tries to make himself very elegant. And I think Dev Patel could have fun with this character, especially with his British accent. He can really bring some goofiness, because he's not that serious of a villain. Like I said, he's a fuck up. His whole big thing is he was going to try to mess up this. It was like this big, what do you call it? Like, not a graduation, but it was like a little fun party celebration that the students were going to have. And his whole big thing was he was going to mess it up and he would get fame off of that. He's very flamboyant and eccentric character. He loves his tea. But he's very skilled. He does have his skill. Like, he can fight. But, and he also has like his, he looks older than he is. He does, I would keep the white hair because he's actually young, but he just has white hair. Keep that look. He also has his sidekick, La Brava, who is this younger chick who's like very obsessed with him. She's kind of like his Harley Quinn, and her power is literally her power. Her quirk is the power of love, and she uses that to amplify him. So they're a weird, duo. Not the greatest villains, but they are a part of a certain arc. So if they pop up, Dev Patel is my pick to play this character. Next up is arguably one of the other, like the main-ish villain, or kind of secondary main villain, and that of Tomura oh god, I can't pronounce his name. Tomura Shigaraki. I probably screwed that up, aka Future King. And my pick to play Future King is Cody Smith McPhee. Cody Smith McPhee, young actor, he's 24. You may remember him as Nightcrawler in the Age of the X-Men Apocalypse and X-Men Dark Phoenix films, and he also was the voice for Paranorman in the Paranorman movie. I haven't seen a lot of his work, but I do enjoy him. And the main reason I picked him is because he has a very unique look. He's very tall, thin, kind of weird looking in the face, which fits perfectly with the Future King Tomura character, who is a weird looking kid. And also this actor, Cody Smith McPhee, has experience with special effects and makeup, which he would need for this character who has a weird scars on his face, but he also wears this weird mask, which is going to be hard to translate. It's literally like a hand, and he's got all these other hands over him. That's going to be hard to translate. But his quirk is decay, where basically anything he touches, he can disintegrate. But he has to touch the object with all 5 of his fingers in order for it to disintegrate. And it's kind of like a Rogue, where he has a deadly touch and you have to stay away from him. And he is the leader of the League of Villains, which is this group of villains that come together to wreck to piss off All Might, but also to attack the kids. And he's like the secondary main villain. He's not my favorite of the villains. He's a very entitled and whiny emo kid, and he wants unearned respect. He sucks. He really does suck. But he does evil shit just to be evil, and he hates when other people make him look bad. He's like the worst. Low key, he's like a crazy school shooter type kid. Like, this kid he's got issues, but he's also very dangerous because of his powers, which could be an interesting dynamic to bring to the character. And I think Cody Smith McPhee could definitely pull that off. So he's my pick for Future King. Next up is that of Kai Shisaki, aka Overhaul. Dope character. And my pick to play Overhaul is Diego Tinoco. He's a young actor. He's 23. You may know him from All Night Block on Netflix. Haven't seen that series, but I've seen some clips. He's a fun show. And I mainly picked him because I like his look. And I've seen him act a little bit. But I like his look. And I'm going a little different here because Overhaul in the series is once again Japanese. He comes from the Yakuza, and he takes over the Yakuza from his sick uncle, and he wants to he comes up with this plan where he wants to get rid of the supervillains so that the Yakuza can come back into its prominence, because the mafia's been pushed aside because of all the supervillainy, and he hates superpowers, and he wants to come up with a way to eliminate those powers. And like I said, this being an adaptation, This most likely being taking place in America. I thought it would be kind of cool as opposed to doing the Yakuza. We can probably do something like a the Mexican drug cartel aspect as opposed to the Yakuza. Use that as a trade it out, swap it out as a way. Also bring a little more diversity to the project. Now Overhaul's power is that of Overhaul, where basically he can disassemble and reassemble anything he touches. He can alter the structure of it and then break it up, bring it back, and shit like that. Very powerful power. And like I said, he's a super villain mob boss. He's very cool, he's very calm and collected, he's very antisocial, but he's also a germaphobe, which is the reason why he wears a mask. He was ahead of everybody. That season dropped, 2000? Did that season finish 2019? That was the early part of 2019 when that season finished. He was ahead of the times. He always wears this weird bird mask. All his gang that he works with wear this bird mask. And like I said, he wants to eradicate quirks with this special drug that is made from his sister. He takes some of her essence, some of her quirk, and comes up with this drug that can eliminates quirks. And he's a solid character. When he amps up his powers, very dangerous, very good fight sequences that can happen with this character. Awesome character, and I would like to see young Diego Tinoco pull this off. So he's my pick for Overhaul. And next up we have my favorite villain from the series, that is Hero Killer Stain. And my pick to play Hero Killer Stain, you have to say it all, is Bill Skarsgård. Now, of course, you may remember Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise from the It reboots. He also was on the show Hemlock Grove. Really solid character. He can play weird, quirky guys, but he also has this very unique look, which I think fits perfectly with Stain's design. He has a weird, interesting design as well, and I think Skarsgård could really get into the prosthetics and all of that for that character, but also bring out that psychopathic nature of the character. Hero Killer Stain's quirk is Blood Curdle, which he has the ability to paralyze a target by tasting their blood for up to 8 minutes. Now he's in the type of blood weakens how long that lasts, but if he tasted your blood, he can paralyze you. That's essentially it. But that sounds like a weak power, but he's also a deadly ninja. He will fucking kill you. He is a superhero serial killer, and that's why a lot of the heroes were scared of him, because he feels like most heroes. He's a villain, but in his eye, he's more of an anti-hero, and he hates heroes. He hates the fact that there's so many heroes, and he doesn't feel like the majority of them deserve that job or worth the time of having that role. And except for All Might, he does look up to All Might. He's like, All Might is the rule. If you cannot stick up to that or surpass it, you're gonna fucking die. That's kind of his thing. And in my way, he's like a 90s Image Comics sort of anti-hero character. Very badass, but he has this very strict code where he, if you can't live up to being a true hero, you're gonna die. But inadvertently, he has a bad reaction because his actions inspired more villains to come into the world, even though he doesn't necessarily like villains either. He's kind of complicated. The character Future King kind of uses that to his advantage. Also hates him because everyone likes Hero, the villains like Hero Killer, but they don't like Future King, and Future King kind of low-key hates Hero Killer because Hero Killer Stain actually has a goal and a code as opposed to him just wanting to be evil. Dope character, and I think that sort of pathology, Bill Skarsgård would have a dope time breaking that out of the character. So he's my pick for Stain. And lastly on this list is the big villain, that being All For One. And my pick to play All For One is Hugo Weaving. This is kind of in a way, sort of like basic bitch casting. You know, Hugo Weaving is known for his villain roles, but he's also, you know, The Matrix, but he's also known for working with special effects, so at least he used to be. I don't think he likes doing it as much, but, you know, Red Skull, V for Vendetta, the Hobbit films, or the Lord of the Rings films. Solid actor, very intense, and he was another big name, kind of stunt casting type of way to be a cliffhanger, sort of like what they did or tried to do with Ed Norton at the end of Lita Battle Angel. Spoilers for that movie. But All For One is the #1 supervillain in this universe. And the special effects plays in because he has no face. He's literally just like a mouth, and then like the top of his face is just gone. And so you would, you know, want an actor who's willing to do at least motion capture or some sort of special effects. But he's the #1 villain. He's the symbol of evil, and he's actually the actual benefactor and controller of the League of Villains. And Tomoro, Future King, is like his student, his protege. He's like the emperor, and Tomoro is like Kylo Ren. I wouldn't even say he's Vader. He's not that cool. He's more like a shittier version of Kylo Ren. But he mentors him, and he's actually very forgiving of him. Whenever he fucks up, he's like, "Oh, it's okay. You'll live another day to kill more people. It's fine." Like, it's kind of an odd relationship between the two of them. But his ability is All For One, which is different from One For All. Stick with me here. But All For One is basically he can steal other people's powers, and then he can also combine them, and it makes him powerful. And he's been doing this for like decades, because no one really knows how old he is. Similar to Sylar from the Heroes show, if you remember that. But he's also super smart, and he's got more backstory. They haven't really gotten to it into the anime, so I don't know all of it. But I know it was like him and his younger brother had beef, and his younger brother's who All Might's powers initially comes from. So there's a history there, and he's the typical bad guy. He's powerful. He's super smart, calculating. When he gets involved, he wrecks shit. Like he takes care of business. And I think Hugo Weaving would be a cool actor for that role. Once, you know, like I said, a bit of a stunt casting, but a named actor for this coveted role. So that's my list for live action My Hero Academia. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments. Give me your own lists and suggestions in the comments as well. Love to see those. But if you like this video, give it a like. If you don't like it, dislike it, doesn't matter. Just hit a button, please. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. Check out other videos on the channel, and stay tuned for more videos. Peace.